Hello, for those of you who are on the, um, have joined the conference already, bear with us as we just give folks a few moments uh, to join. It's 6:02, so we're going to give folks a couple of more minutes to see if they can navigate to the webinar, and then we'll continue the meeting or commence the meeting. Once again, hello to everybody who's joined so far. We're going to give another minute to give others an opportunity to join in, and then we'll get the meeting underway. Okay, I think we'll get underway now. Thanks for your patience. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bacon Street Bridge Replacement Project online public meeting. We've given folks a few moments to join in, so I'm sure there will be others that will join a little later. In the meantime, I want to provide a summary of the Governor's modified open meeting regulations prior to commencement of the content of the meeting. I am going to read this. On March 12, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law to enable public bodies to carry out their responsibilities while adhering to public health recommendations regarding social distancing. The executive order relieves public bodies from the requirement of the open meeting law that meetings be conducted in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, provided that a public body makes provision to ensure public access to the deliberations of the public body through adequate alternative means. Adequate alternative means may include, without limitation, providing public access through telephone, internet, or satellite-enabled radio, or video conferencing, or any other technology that enables the public to clearly follow the proceedings of the public body in real time. A municipal public body for reasons of economic hardship and despite best efforts is unable to provide alternative means of public access in real time may instead post on its municipal website a full and complete transcript, recording, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as practicable afterwards. In addition, all members of a public body may participate in a meeting remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that a quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location is suspended. All other provisions of the open meeting law, such as the requirements regarding posting notice of meetings and creating and maintaining accurate meeting minutes, as well as the limited enumerated purposes for holding an executive session, remain in effect. Again, this is a summary of Governor Baker's modification to the open meeting law. If you would like to get more information on this, you can visit the state website at mass.gov, and you can look at the actual text at that location. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the MBTA and the project team for the Bacon Street Bridge Replacement Project online public meeting. My name is John Doherty. I'm a senior project manager for the MBTA, and I'm the project manager for this design build project. I'd also like to thank elected officials for attending. We look forward to hearing your comments and questions after the, well, potentially right after this. First, we will start with an overview of the project history, scope of the work, and schedule. We'll discuss how and when the proposed work may affect you. This is an important project and a key component of our continued efforts to improve the state of good repair of the commuter rail system. The Bacon Street Bridge project was, the Bacon Street Bridge was originally built in 1911. In fact, it was originally built prior to that in the 1800s and modified for use as a railroad bridge in 1911. It's been targeted for a replacement. Well, we're here today to discuss the Bacon Street Bridge replacement. I want to share that this is a part of a larger design build project, which includes the replacement of 6 different bridges on the commuter rail system, all contained within this project. Accompanying me tonight for this meeting are representatives from the design build team. Barletta Heavy Division is the general contractor, and they're working with VHB as the designer. Their public outreach consultant is RVA, Regina Villa and Associates. And VHB is going to provide a walkthrough for us on the a presentation of the design build project for Bacon Street. Thanks again. With that, well, actually, hold on one sec. Sorry if this gets a little bit choppy. We've done several of these, but it's still a work in progress.
John, if you like, this is Alan. I can walk the public through how we're going to be handling the comment period after this, and then we can kick off the technical presentation.
I'm sorry, Alan, say that again.
If you like, I can walk the public through how we're going to handle the comment period, and then I can hand it over for the technical presentation.
Yeah, that would be good. I was reading some of the chat. Yeah, that'd be great. You can hand it right to Bob.
Great.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Belniak, and I'm along here with VHB and the project team for the Bacon Street Bridge replacement project. So before we get started with the technical presentation, I just want to outline how the process for participating in this meeting is going to work. Some of you may have attended these meetings before. For some of you, this could be the first time. So to prevent disruptions, your webcams and video are turned off by default, and your microphones are muted as well. That's just to minimize any excessive background noise for what might be happening where you are. At a later point in the presentation, we'll open up the meeting to questions and comments after the technical presentation. And we request that you only share one question or comment at a time, just in order to allow everyone an opportunity to participate. And if there's time remaining at the end and you have a second question, we'll provide you the opportunity to ask another one. You may also submit your comments or questions after the meeting, if we happen to run out of time, to the project email address. I'll read that off now, and we're going to show it later on as well. That's Bacon ST for street, Bacon ST Bridge at MBTA.com. That's Bacon ST Bridge, no spaces, at MBTA.com. And again, we'll show that later on. As with the standard public meeting in person, we ask attendees to identify yourselves so we have a record of who attended. If your name is on the Zoom does not clearly identify who you are, please rename yourself now if you plan on speaking to your first and last name. During the course of the meeting, the project team may rename you if you have not done so yourself. And this would occur, for instance, if you use an email address for your name, or if you call in by the telephone, and then once we unmute your mic and you tell us who you are. If you would like to submit a typed comment or question, you may use the Q&A feature, which can be found in the bottom row of buttons of your screen there in the black bar. When the question and answer portion of the meeting begins after the technical presentation, We'll first respond verbally to questions and comments that have been typed in the Q&A feature. If you wish to share your question or comment verbally, you can also use the raised hand button, which looks like a hand, which is located next to the Q&A button. But please wait to raise your hand until the question and answer portion of that meeting begins to make it easier for us to manage that flow. Attendees will be called upon in the order they raise their hands. And after you raise your hand, you'll need to wait for a member of the project team to recognize your name and then unmute your mic before speaking. You'll then have the opportunity to share your question or comment, and then we'll go ahead and lower your hand, and then you'll be returned to the muted state, and we'll cycle through that. If you're joining by phone, you may also follow along the presentation verbally. You can also, obviously by phone, and you can also follow along posted online on the project event webpage. And you can find that by going to mbta.com/BaconSTBridge and click Learn More and join the Bacon Street meeting to find the presentation materials. Again, if you are joining by phone and you'd like to share a question or comment, you too can raise your hand. And you can do that by pressing *9 when we get into the Q&A portion. That's the same as pressing the raise hand icon if you're using the Zoom controls. Again, please wait till the Q&A portion to do so. And just like everyone else, when it's your turn to speak, you'll be notified that you have been unmuted. You can then share your question or comment and then place back again on mute. And finally, one more thing, we are featuring a closed caption service. So if you need to enable the closed caption service, there should be a CC button on the lower portion of buttons in your Zoom panel, and you can click on that and click Show Subtitles. And so with that, I'll turn it over to, I believe, Bob Penfield for the technical presentation.
Alan, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Bob Penfield. I work at VHB. I'm part of the consultant design build team of Barletta and VHB, working for the MBTA for this project, and I am the design manager. We're sharing a screen right now, which is the first slide of our PowerPoint presentation, which shows a rough rendering of what the proposed bridge will look like once it's complete. And just as we go through the slides that you'll see up on the screen, just for your note, we've used the color blue and shades of blue to highlight some of the contours of the bridge itself. The actual color would be black, but it just wouldn't show up on the screen very well. So I just wanted to point that out. Alan, next slide. As we mentioned, several folks here meeting with you today. John Doherty, who introduced himself earlier as the MBTA project manager. Gary Orlando, who's with us today, is the project manager working for Barletta. Myself, design manager with VHB, and Andrew Burkholder, who is our senior engineer for this project, my coworker, and works at VHB as well. Next slide. Just to give you an overview of what we're going to be discussing here tonight. First, I'm going to start off with a full project overview. As John mentioned, this is one bridge amongst a group of bridges that are part of a single project, and I'll provide some information regarding that. And then we'll focus more specifically on the Bacon Street Bridge itself, talk about its site locations and constraints, proposed bridge layout and design. We're going to highlight some of the construction staging, how we're proposing to construct the bridge, and then how the traffic, how you'll be impacted and how traffic might be impacted during some of those different construction stages. And lastly, we'll highlight the project schedule. You can understand when those impacts would be happening. And then after that, we'll follow on with a question and answer session. Next slide. So as I've mentioned, the Bacon Street Bridge is one bridge amongst 6 that were combined to create a single design build project. That's a project where a contractor and an engineer form a single team and deliver that project, both the design and the construction for the MBTA in this case. Next slide. As you can see, this is a map showing the MBTA's commuter rail system and the relative location of those 6 different bridges, where they're located on that commuter rail system. As you can see, Bacon Street is on the Framingham-Worcester line, and there's actually another bridge inbound of that, which is the Intervale Road Bridge, which is also part of this project. Next slide. Just to give you a brief overview of how this project came to be, back in 2016, the MBTA started the preliminary design of each of those 6 bridges by different consultants. And in 2017, the MBTA's Capital Delivery Group in their effort to accelerate the pace of their infrastructure improvements, decided to combine all 6 of these individual projects into a single one, and then use design build as the contract procurement method to both accelerate the pace of the design and construction and encourage some more innovation. So in 2018 and 2019, they procured this project as a design build. 9 different teams proposed. 3 of those 9 were shortlisted, and ultimately the Barletta VHB team was selected as the best value team. We started on the job in the second half of 2019, and our schedule is for the entire, all 6 bridges, the entire project is for 3 years, 2019 to 2022. However, the schedule for each individual bridge would vary within that 3 years, and we'll get into a little bit more detail later on. But at the end of the project, it would conclude in August of 2022. Next slide. So we're here to talk about Bacon Street, the Bacon Street Bridge. As most of you know, this is the bridge carries the Framingham-Worcester line over Bacon Street, just at the intersection of Bacon Street and East Central Street, or Route 135. Next slide. You can advance that. So we're going to zoom in here so you can get an idea of where this bridge is in space and some of the access and kind of site constraints associated with the bridge location. As we zoom in here. So as you can see, hopefully on this screen, the bridge currently carries 2 active tracks, inbound and outbound. It formerly carried 4 tracks, all within the MBTA right-of-way, which is shaded on the screen here, you can see. In green, what we've identified as the superstructure staging area is primarily where we're going to be constructing the superstructure elements of the bridge. But again, we're going to get into a lot more detail on that a little bit later in this presentation. Next slide. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew Burkholder, again, a VHB counterpart. Thanks, Andrew.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Bob. So as John mentioned before, the bridge in its current state was built in 1911. And as Bob mentioned, it used to be a 4-track structure, but currently there are only 2 active tracks across the bridge. It is a steel girder bridge, and it's supported by granite masonry abutments, as you can see in the pictures here on the right side of the screen. The distance between the faces of those abutments is 29 feet 6 inches, and that includes a 5-foot 6-inch sidewalk shown on the left-hand side of the lower picture. There are some utilities through this project area. The bridge carries signal and fiber optic communication lines. There's also the PTC wires, which are overhead. A PTC is the positive train control wires, but those are up on poles. Through this corridor, there's 52 commuter trains that operate on a daily basis during the week, and there are 18 commuter trains using the bridge on each weekend day, and some use by Amtrak and CSX Freight as well. Next, please. So why do we need to do this project? And the bottom line is that this bridge is in poor condition. So typically when we inspect bridges, we would rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being in the best condition. A 7 or 8 would be a rating of good. 5 or 6 would be we'd call that a fair condition. But down at a 4, this is in poor condition. It's past its useful life, and the T has scheduled it for replacement. So, and this is in an effort for the MBTA's continuing need to provide that safe and efficient transportation system for the T riders and the public, and also maintain the state of good repair of its infrastructure. Next, please. So the goals for this project, again, as I mentioned, we want to restore that state of good repair for the MBTA, replace this bridge with a new one that will be resilient and have a 75-year expected service life. And we want to complete this project by minimizing impacts to the abutters, users of the T, and also the traveling public on Bacon Street and also East Central Street or Route 135. We also want to respect the historical nature of these existing granite block abutments. Next, please. So as I mentioned, this bridge will be completely replaced. The track profiles that are out there today and alignments will remain the same. In other words, we're not raising the tracks, we're not shifting the tracks. They'll go right back in their existing positions. We are going to use accelerated construction techniques. An acronym that's used sometimes is ABC. And this is to, again, minimize those impacts on the abutters and the traveling public as best we can. I also want to mention that our design does allow for a future third track to be constructed through this corridor. The bridge will accept a third track, although that third track is not being constructed as part of this project. The new structure, it's a simple span, one span, and will be supported behind the existing granite abutments. I'll show some graphics here in a minute, so that's more easily seen. And we should note that all the construction will be within that existing right-of-way that Bob showed, the purple area, where no temporary easements are required. Next, please. So the graphic at the bottom of the screen, this is if you were standing on Bacon Street, looking at the bridge, and I was able to slice it right in half down the middle. And so you can kind of see the entire bridge, superstructure and substructure. So as I mentioned, we are installing new abutments behind the existing granite block abutments. Those are shown in the brownish color. The new abutments consist of precast concrete components and precast approach slabs. And then the foundation consists of micropiles. Those are the vertical lines you see that are in the almost a black color. Most people, when you mention the word pile, they think of pile driving, involving large equipment and a hammer driving those piles into the ground. It's loud. There's a lot of vibration. This is not that operation at all. The micropiles are drilled into the ground using fairly small equipment, drilled into the ground to reduce noise, reduce vibration, and they can be advanced all the way down to the bedrock. The vertical clearance here will remain at 13 feet 10 inches, and as Bob mentioned, although we show these slides with the bridge color in blue, that's really just to highlight it so it can be seen better. The color, it will be black in the final condition. Next, please. So this drawing on this slide is if I were standing up on the tracks and able to slice the bridge in half and take a look at the cross section. It's a ballasted through girder system for the steel superstructure. And as I mentioned, it supports or can support 3 tracks in a future configuration. However, this project only will install the 2 tracks that are existing today. We also provide a safety walk on both sides of the bridge. Next, please. This view is looking down at the bridge. You can see East Central Street, Route 135, that's running up and down the slide on the right-hand side. Bacon Street is running left to right in this graphic. And this is to show the extent of the roadway improvements on Bacon Street as part of this project. You can see the darker shade of gray. This represents the repaving of Bacon Street, which extends from East Central Street back to where Bacon Street takes a sharp curve. And you can also see that the existing sidewalk would be reconstructed, including wheelchair ramps and the warning strips. Next slide, please. So again, this is the same graphic you saw at the beginning of the presentation of what that new bridge might look like when it's all complete. But the roadway will be repaved, and the sidewalk that's a little overgrown, as you can see in the bottom right-hand side of this picture, that will be an all-new sidewalk at the end of this project. Next, please. So we wanted to take you through some of the construction sequencing and show you what some of the major operations are that are going to be involved to build this bridge, and then how those operations may impact traffic on both East Central Street and Bacon Street over the course of the construction. So this is a rendering of the area as existing conditions, and then we'll step through some of those processes. So next, please, Alan. The first step will be to install the micropiles, the deep foundations that I described before. This operation takes place up at the track level using the relatively small equipment, like I mentioned before. No impacts to Bacon Street or East Central Street. There's no closures required, no detours required to complete this work. Next, please. The next step will be to remove a portion of the existing structure. As we mentioned, the existing bridge used to carry 4 tracks. We need to remove a section of the existing bridge so that we can create room for ourselves to build the new superstructure adjacent to the existing. So to complete this operation, we will need to close Bacon Street for a weekend. We're defining a weekend as sometime after the Friday afternoon rush to approximately early Monday morning before the morning rush. And the reason we need to close Bacon Street, there's two main reasons. One is access for cranes and construction equipment, and the other reason is safety. We're going to be demolishing a portion of the bridge, lifting heavy loads overhead. It's really a safety concern to have any members of the public near the construction site. So Bacon Street would essentially be closed right at the bridge site, becoming a dead end. You can see the traffic on East Central Street is still, there's still one lane in each direction. It's just shifted over a little bit, again, to allow for some of the equipment to get in there for this operation. Next, please. So there will be some time in between that previous slide and this slide. It's just, this is the next major operation for the construction. And this would require what we would call a full closure. And this would, again, would be for a weekend, Friday after the rush to early Monday morning. But here we need to close Bacon Street and East Central Street right at the vicinity of the bridge, and also close the MBTA tracks. And by doing this over the weekend, this allows us to excavate out the previously installed foundations, install our precast concrete abutments, the caps, and our approach slabs. And then that new work will all be covered up by ballast and replace the track so we can open the bridge Monday morning. We will go over some of the planned, the draft detour routes in just a second. But I want to mention on East Central Street, while it's closed for the general public, we will have access for emergency vehicles to pass through this construction site during this weekend closure. So there will be a lane for those vehicles to make their way through so that we're not reducing the response times of vehicles traveling on 135. Next, please, Alan. So once that's all in place, there's going to be some time to build some temporary shoring near the existing abutments. Again, this will support our proposed superstructure. No impacts to the traffic for this stage. Next, please. The next major operation would be to actually assemble this new superstructure next to the existing. So again, this is shown in the blue girders here. And again, for the same reasons I've mentioned before, we do need to close Bacon Street and East Central Street for the weekend, again, for safety's sake, for the overhead construction, and also the access for cranes and other equipment. Again, leaving a lane open for emergency vehicles on East Central Street. Next, please, Alan. So there will be some time then when the remaining portions of the proposed structure are completed. There's a lot of work to be done after the girders and the overhead work over the lanes is complete. And this graphic shows that stage where there is no significant impacts to the traffic. Next, please. All right, so for the final step or the last major step where we need a closure of these roadways is to actually move the proposed structure into place. So again, you'll see Bacon Street is closed, East Central Street is closed, again with provided signed detours. And again, this is for a weekend and only in the vicinity of the bridge itself. And so during this closure, we'll be able to remove the remaining portions of the existing structure and then use an SPMT. This is a self-propelled modular transporter. You can think of a big flatbed with lots of wheels that can drive itself. These will be used to lift up the new superstructure that we've constructed and drive it into place, drop it down. The tracks can be reinstalled, and then everything is opened back up to both train traffic and vehicular traffic. Next, please, Alan. And that's shown in this slide. And then the last bit of construction needed to finish off this bridge construction is to repave Bacon Street, as I mentioned, and install the sidewalk. Next, please, Alan. And that's shown in this slide. Right. Next, Alan. So I think the next step is we want to go through some of these detours with you to show what, a concept for what these detours might look like during these construction activities. And I'll turn it back over to Bob.
Andrew, thank you. One of the kind of overarching themes to this design was to find a way to construct this bridge while minimizing impacts both to commuter rail service, freight rail service, the public travelers that would use the roadway on Bacon Street and going on to East Central Street. So a lot of the details and construction sequencing that Andrew walked through was a result of that, really thinking through how to minimize how many impacts and the number of weekends that we need for this replacement. But as you mentioned, there are some situations where we do actually need to implement a detour. So we've got basically two types of detours. One, where we're just closing the portion of Bacon Street that is essentially directly under the bridge. So you wouldn't be able to pass underneath the bridge to get to 135 East Central Street. In those situations, we would have, again, variable message signs located at critical intersections in the vicinity of the project. And if you were coming down south on Oak Street, you would be taking a right onto Bacon Street versus the left, down to Marion, and then again out back onto East Central Street. Just wanted to note, though, during that time, the left-hand turn of Bacon Street off of Oak still is in service, is still open. Access to anyone who lives in that neighborhood is still there. It's essentially just a dead end at that point for those periods of time where that Bacon Street detour is implemented. So next slide. And then for the 3 weekends where we need to shut down both that same section of Bacon Street, again, just under the bridge, but also that small portion of East Central Street, Route 135, we've implemented a different type of detour. And here, it's a little bit of a longer detour, and we're trying to balance, and this is a draft, balance the needs of both cars and also kind of larger trucks. So we're trying to find ways where a detour might be a little bit longer for a truck, but it's not passing through more local roadways. And then folks that are more local and understand the street network here a little bit better will probably find a more efficient way to route around, but we're going to sign that detour for cars only using Marion Street and Walnut Street up onto Route 9. Again, we will have variable message signs at all the pertinent intersections. Those will be active at least 2 weeks in advance of any of the construction start. So you can see, we'll have identified what those detours are, when they will be implemented, well in advance of them being implemented. Next slide. So wanted to discuss the project status and schedule. Some of you are aware, some of the site clearing started in fall of this past year, and some of the site prep is happening right now, spring of 2020. We're anticipating the start of more of the foundation work late spring, and at this point, early summer 2020. Partial demolition of the existing bridges, as Andrew indicated, the out of service portions of the bridge, that would be fall of 2020 and spring of 2021. Constructing of the new bridge adjacent to the old bridge would be in either spring or summer of 2021. Moving it into place, anticipated either late summer or early fall 2021. And then that site cleanup, the final resurfacing of Bacon Street would happen fall of 2021. So as I mentioned very early on in this presentation, the full project goes till August 2022, but for the Bacon Street bridge, that portion of the project would be completed in fall of 2021. Before we get into a lot of that heavy construction in fall of 2020, we anticipate meeting again with all of you to present again a little bit more of an update on the schedule, clarify and get a little bit more detail on those specific dates as we get closer to them. Next slide. And lastly, most importantly, how can you reach us? We've got a project website, as we mentioned earlier on. We'll leave this slide up during the Q&A. So if you want to write this down, it's mbta.com/Bacon Street Bridge. In that website, or on that website, you can sign up to get your email on our email list, so you can receive any e-blasts that we will also be sending out in advance of construction stages. We have an email address, baconstreetbridge@mbta.com, if you wanted to send any questions. And we also have a 24-hour telephone hotline, which you see the number right below. With that, that concludes the formal presentation. And John, unless you want to say something else, we will be opening up to questions.
So I can take this from here,
Sorry.
Alan. Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, it's the mute thing.
Yeah.
My apologies to all as I searched for my mute button in between reviewing questions and chat comments with the panelists. So Kate, I will turn it over to you momentarily for now to introduce yourself and to check in with some of the attendees. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, John. So my name is Kate Barrett. I work at Regina Villa Associates, and we're helping the design build team and the MBTA with public outreach for this project. I'm going to be moderating the Q&A portion of the meeting. A couple things, housekeeping I want to do with you, Alan, now is to rename people who have called in so we know who we're speaking with, and for the public record, we have their names. So I see a number that ends in 067. Could you allow that person to talk so they can identify their first and last name, please?
Yes. Phone number ending in 067. Your microphone is now open and the floor is yours.
All right.
Okay.
So we can go back to that person. We have, again, this is just to identify yourselves. This is not actually to ask questions yet. We want to make sure we have a full public meeting record. So we have a phone number that's 781, and then it ends in 619. If you could unmute that person, Alan, and if you could please provide your name, first and last name.
Okay, phone number ending in 619. Your microphone is unmuted and the floor is yours to share your name for the record.
Hi, this is Molly Saccone in Representative Peish's office.
Molly,
Thank you, Molly.
Molly, could you spell your last name, please?
Absolutely. It's C-E-C-C-O-N-I. All those C's are like C in cat.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Molly. Then we have the number is 857, the area code, and the last 3 digits are 896. If you could open the mic and allow the person to state their name and first and last name.
Okay, phone ending in 896.
Pardon?
896. My name is Bill Wang.
Okay,
First name B-I-L-L, last name H-U-A-N-G.
great, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think 06617-067, is that Robin Harper?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. There are a couple people who just provided their first names. I'd like to get your last name as well. There's Adele who called in or who's joined us via Zoom. If you could let us know your last name, Adele.
Adele, your microphone's unmuted. Or rather, I've sent a command so you could, if you could unmute your mic and share with us your last name, please.
My last name is Langevin, L-A-N-G-E-V-I-N.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Let's see, who do we have here that some people, Lydia, we have somebody named Lydia who we do not have your last name, Lydia, if you could share that with us.
Yes, Lydia Rivera.
Okay, great, thank you. And it looks like that is everybody.
Kate, there's one more name.
Oh,
Angela?
Angela, yes, thank you.
Angela, your microphone is unmuted.
Snyder?
All right, I think we have everybody's first and last names here. So with that, P. Griffin, actually, could you please provide your first name?
Give me 1 second. Okay, P. Griffin, go ahead, please.
Paul.
Great.
I'm
Thank
sorry?
you, Paul.
Paul, thank you.
Paul, yeah, okay. All right, thank you for bearing with us on that housekeeping. We're going to go through the written Q&As that people have submitted. I'm going to read the questions, and John Doherty will take the lead on answering those or field them to other team members. Once we've completed that, we can go through with the raise hand feature that Alan had discussed early in the meeting. So the first question we have is from Josh Ostroff. Will the town of Wellesley be responsible for any bicycle and pedestrian improvements on Bacon Street and Central Street?
Thank you for the question, Josh. Nice to hear from you again. Yes, the town and/or MassDOT would be responsible for, depending on the roadway, for any multimodal transportation relative to bike path on East Central Street and Bacon. We have had dialogue with the town, and we're going to work with the town on improvements that we can make to underneath the bridge, and as we transition onto East Central and onto, so that dialogue is taking place, but the actual construction of additional facilities outside of the, on Bacon or on East Central Street would be the responsibility of the town on MassDOT. Thank you for the question.
Okay. The next question we have is, as you are saving the granite blocks, is it appropriate to assume that you have had the necessary review through Massachusetts Historical Commission following Department of Interior standards? I doubt the bridge rises to the level of NR, but I appreciate keeping the historic components. And this is from Catherine Johnson, Wellesley Planning Board.
Thank you, Catherine. We have, some time ago, we entertained in the early phases of the project, we entertained discussions and had a good dialogue with the Wellesley Historic Commission. So they're fully aware that we intend to keep the structure as it exists intact. Yeah, we've responded to the town. And again, this is a part of the project record from some time back, identifying that. Bob, if there's anything you want to add on this matter?
It's unmuting here. Thanks, John. Yes, just to reiterate what you said, there was coordination. It predates many of the folks here in this meeting, but the coordination between MBTA, Mass Historical Commission, and the Wellesley Historical Commission happened back in about 2017. So which a lot of that is reflective of what we're showing on our plans and leaving those granite block abutments in place to the maximum extent practical.
Great. Okay. Catherine Johnson has another question. What protections are being taken during and post-construction to protect wetlands and buffer zones, as well as Wellesley's water supply protection district zoning?
Thanks again, Catherine. We have developed a stormwater pollution control plan, and we will be in compliance with all of the regulations of the Wellesley Conservation Commission. We will be on their agenda again in the future before we get into detailed heavy construction, but most definitely intend to comply with all aspects of the Wetlands Protection Act and Wellesley Conservation Commission's local bylaw.
Okay, Catherine has another question concerning detours. Could you address emergency vehicle access to the neighborhood, fire truck and ambulance in particular?
Once again, thank you, Catherine. We have not finalized our plan. We have the currently proposed traffic management plan in front of the town, and we had, as I mentioned earlier, we had a productive discussion with several members of the town staff yesterday, including the police, fire, and DPW, along with the executive secretary's office. And that dialogue will continue. We recognize there are some issues that need to be addressed. During the course of the normal detour route, when we implement it, East Central Street will remain open to emergency vehicles. But there is an issue with Bacon Street that we have not finalized how we're going to handle that. Again, the project is at 60% design. So recognize that we do have some issues to iron out, and that certainly will be a primary one. So we can certainly keep you informed through the webpage, and of course, contact us at any point during the design process. Thanks.
Let's see, Christina Perdoni. All I have is a name. She did not provide a question. So Christina, if you have a question, please go ahead and type that in, and I'm going to move on to the next one for now. Dave Hickey, it looked like conduit, likely for electricity or communication, will run along the walkways. Will these conduits be visible from the road?
All right, Dave, I'm going to, this is a little bit of a detailed question relative to the design. So I'm going to defer to Bob and Andrew on that particular question.
Thanks, John. It's likely some line work that's an anomaly. There is not going to be any conduits that are visible from the road. I'm presuming you mean underneath if you were standing on Bacon Street looking up at the bridge. There are conduits that are associated with the railroad right-of-way. Those would be some buried utilities. They're contained within the bridge superstructure itself, buried within the ballast next to the track, so those would not be visible. Apologies if that answers your question, or if you wanted to follow up.
Bob, I can clarify a little bit too. The drawing does show those conduits are attached to the safety walk, on top of the safety walk. So they are kind of outside the bridge limits as far as the girders, but they are supported up next to the safety walk. As far as visibility from Bacon Street, I don't think you're going to see a lot of them because there's safety walk grading to allow people to walk across that safety walk, not to public, but for maintenance of the utilities and the bridge itself. Also, there's a railing on that safety walk, and also there'll be some sort of snow fencing that is going to be attached to that railing, which will screen the view of those utilities. So they're going to be outside the bridge, but I don't think they're going to be very visible from Bacon Street or East Central Street at all.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Dave Hickey has another question. How does the micro-tunnel rig get access to the tracks?
Thanks, Dave. I am going to defer to Bob on the constructability issues relative to that as well. Please, Bob.
Thanks, John. That's a great question. So the rig is relatively small in terms of construction equipment. It rides up. There's an area west, if you travel west along East Central Street of the bridge location, where the grades are flatten out, and the elevation of the tracks and the elevation of the roadway are fairly close, and there's access via that side. That would provide access for that rig to the west abutment. Access for the east abutment, there's another section inbound of the tracks, I guess you would say east on East Central Street, east of the bridge, where again the tracks and the road are fairly close in elevation, and there is an access point there. So that's where the rig would get in from either side.
All right, great, thank you. Dave has another question. What are the changes in bridge width and road clearance?
Thanks again, Dave. We don't intend to change any of the parameters of the bridge in keeping with keeping the granite abutments in place. We recognize that there are drainage issues there and don't intend to do anything to change the height under the bridge, the vertical. With that being said, you know, we intend to discuss with you further as we have previously, you know, some accommodations we can make potentially, or at least have a dialogue about improvements at the Bacon Street side of the entrance to the bridge. Thanks.
All right, Nancy Horn has a question. How does the bridge construction schedule integrate with the plan to put a light at the Bacon Street 135 intersection?
Nancy, that's a great question. In dialogue with the town, and certainly as we you know, get more involved in replacement of the bridge, we are certainly aware that that would be our primary location for signalization. My response to town officials relative to that was that we work closely with MassDOT. Of course, we're actually a part of MassDOT. My role in that would be to try to reach out to our colleagues there and see what you know, where they are with that and what we can do to sort of work together. I can't say it's a part of this project. I don't really know much about exactly where that stands. That is it's a good question. I don't know. I don't have a definitive answer as to where how that would be integrated, but I know it's needed there. And we're certainly going to do some research to find out if MassDOT has any, you know, idea when that might be implemented, or if it's even in their capital improvement program as identified. So that's an ongoing question that we'll have to do a little bit of research on.
Okay. Let's see. I'm just checking the chat, and also, let's see. Looks like Molly from Rep. Pisha's office has a question. I don't have that written down. Do you want to open her microphone?
Yes, Molly,
Alan?
your microphone is now open. The floor is yours.
Thank you, guys. My question was going to be focused on the signalization as well. So if you could just keep us in the loop on those conversations. My mind is focused in a whole bunch of other places, but money is floating around for that, and the town has been moving along on the design of that. So just if we could, you know, keep everyone in the loop on that, that would be great. So I feel like my question was pretty much answered in the last question, but signalization is very important to the representative on that road.
Great, thank you, Molly. We definitely will keep you informed in Representative Pisha's office, and we'll be looking into that as well. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Kathleen Fleming has a question. Do the plans for the new bridge include a sufficient sidewalk? As it stands now, it is very dangerous for pedestrians.
Thanks, Kathleen. Yeah, there's no question that it's not ideal under the bridge as it exists. So yeah, the entire area under the bridge between the abutments will be reconstructed. That we anticipate having an extended dialogue with the town on, you know, town officials, public works, engineering, police, and fire in particular, to lay that out in the best way possible that you know, fits with what the town's needs actually are. So definitely there will be some sidewalk improvements under the bridge, no question about that.
Great, thank you. Keen Ho asks, can you go over the, oh, I'm sorry, Suzanne Minio has a question about the soil at the bottom of Bacon, which was originally from the Henrywood paint factory that is known to be contaminated. She wants to know the plan for that.
Hello, Susan. Thanks for the question. And we intend to remove any material from the site that we encountered during construction. Outside of that, if it remains undisturbed, we wouldn't actually plan to remove it from the site. But certainly there will be some, and you know, we'll have that included in the design. So it's gonna, as I said, if we encounter it during construction, it will be removed, but otherwise it would remain as is.
So again, sorry, Keen Ho, can you go over the detour slides again? Alan, I think we need to pull those up. It's not clear from the slide how traffic will be detoured in Wellesley.
Go to slide 27 or slide 28. Yep, that would be great.
All right, so Bob, let me defer to you on description of exactly what we plan to do with the detour here.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. So this is the instances where only Bacon Street and the portion of Bacon Street underneath the bridge would be closed for those short periods of time. And if you were, say, traveling south on Oak Street, you would have you would be taking a right-hand turn onto Bacon Street versus the left-hand turn. And then you go down to Marion Street, and from Marion, then connect to East Central, and you can kind of get yourself back around. I recognize that really is the detour. 95% of that is within Natick versus Wellesley, and then local access to Bacon Street. If you had taken a left on Oak Street going towards the bridge, all that access would remain open. It would just be essentially a dead end at the bridge. And then for if we go to slide 28, this is the kind of more expansive detour. Again, these are going to be 3 weekends over the next, I'd say, approximately year and a half. So we have 2 things. One, if you this is where you would close both the portion of East Central Street adjacent to the bridge and Bacon Street underneath the bridge. If you were traveling around, and again, we'd have variable message signs that are going to be up well in advance of these. But your detour essentially is using Marion Street, Bacon Street, and Walnut Street to get up onto Route 9 out in Natick. And that would be the car detour. Trucks would be required to travel farther down westerly on East Central Street to pick up Route 27, North Main Street, and then to get up onto Route 9 and back around. And then on the south, you would be using a combination of Route 16 and Washington Street, Route 16, Washington Street, and Union Street to connect on the southern side of the detour. Again, all local access to the street network along East Central Street, Pond Road, those would all remain open. We just don't want to sign those as detours. A lot of those obviously are one way, so that wouldn't work, but some of them are very local roads, and we didn't want to push additional cars and trucks through some of those neighborhoods. But as folks that are local, you'll find the way that works best for you, I'm sure. So this is just would be the signed detour. And then one last thing is that it's a draft, and we are currently working with the town engineer, police and fire, and emergency services to ensure that this is a workable solution for those few weekends where we do need to impact the roads.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple people who have joined who, as we had mentioned when we opened the meeting, we would like to have your first and last names for the meeting record. Carl, Alan, can you open Carl's microphone? And Carl, can you let us know your last name, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Carl Hammond, Hammond.
Thank you very much. And then we have Michelle, if you could open her mic and let her provide her last name for us.
Go ahead, Michelle. Oops. Michelle, you want to try once more? Michelle's line is, Michelle, you are allowed to speak if you'd like to share your last name.
Okay. All right. That's fine. So let's move on then to the remainder of the questions. So this is from Nancy Horn again, and it has, I think it's a follow-on question from her previous question. So I'm going to ask you, Ellen, if you could open her mic so that she can, her question is, how will you inform us after you interact with them? I just want some clarification on that question.
Okay, Nancy, I've let you go ahead and unmute your mic. The floor is yours.
Hello, thank you. Molly followed up on my question to you. It was about the traffic light. And so I think we're good there because you will be letting us all know, right?
Well, yeah, the best way to get information will be, Nancy, through the web page and the project page, and you can email the project page, at Bacon Street Bridge at MBTA.com to get an update.
Well, I'm asking specifically about the light at the intersection, though.
Yes, I'm aware of that. So we will be looking into that with MassDOT, and we will have continued dialogue with the, as I mentioned earlier, the police and fire departments and engineering, public works. So I can't say for sure where that dialogue is going to go. So I would suggest that you know, we will have that information available, but I can't say for certain when. So I would suggest that you either call the hotline or email us periodically for an update, and I'll do the best I can for you and get as much, I'll provide whatever information I'm able to find.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Josh Ostroff asked, can people receive project updates by signing up at the webpage? And yes, absolutely. Please go to the webpage. There is a link to sign up for our email updates. We would love to have you join our list and keep you updated that way. And as John said, we also have the hotline and the project email inbox where you can reach us. But please do go to the webpage. That's our kind of central clearinghouse of information. And where you can sign up to get email updates. Thank you for that. William Hammond, how will pedestrian traffic be rerouted during construction?
Thank you for the question, William. The 4 weekends, the only time there'll be an impact on pedestrian traffic under the bridge will be during the 4 weekends when we have the shutdowns. And unfortunately, I don't think there's any way we can do the bridge construction without closing the Bacon Street underpass, so to speak, to both vehicular and pedestrian traffic. We can certainly discuss options if that provides a certain hardship to you. But in the interim, I would say that during those 4 weekends, there'll be no pedestrian traffic allowed under the bridge. But outside of that, any interruption of pedestrian traffic, if any, will be minimal, and we will certainly notify the neighborhood if that's likely to occur. And that's something that falls under Kate's purview under our project team. She's an expert at updating the public. So if anything like that is to occur, we'll certainly keep the neighborhood informed.
Absolutely. Allison Burson, well, actually, it looks like Eric Sofin is writing under Allison Burson's email address. He's a Wellesley resident, works at MathWorks in Natick. I bike commute through there 2 times per day and run 1 to 2 times per day when I go running at lunchtime. I have concerns about the bike and ped safety aspect of the project that I hope you can speak to. Number 1, the width of Bacon Street is already a safety issue for moving through that intersection by bike or on foot. Number 2, while too crumbled to tell clearly, I'm surprised that the existing sidewalk is 5 feet 6 inches, or 5 to 6 feet, sorry. I hope the new sidewalk can actually achieve that width. 3, And I can go, I want to give you the whole scope of the questions and then we can go back one-on-one. Detours, there's no mention of bike ped detours or accommodations. The road is already dangerously rough on bike or foot. I imagine it will only get worse during the project with heavy work vehicles. What are the plans to deal with gaping potholes? And 5, all renderings of the site only show cars. Representation matters and affects how people think about the project and its impacts. I hope in the future VHB will be inclusive of all road users in their imagery.
Okay, thanks for the questions, Eric. So we'll try to run down them one at a time. Recognizing that the width of Bacon Street is already an issue for folks over there, I think that, there will be a reconstruction or, grind and overlay of the paving area and a reconstruction of what's referred to as a sidewalk now. Again, we're in some dialogue with the town to decide exactly how we should lay this out. But there will be a complete sort of reconstruction underneath. We won't be excavating, but we'll grind and overlay on the road portion of it. We'll rebuild the sidewalk. And there is, as you probably know, there is some sort of area under there that can be better utilized. So we intend to do that. 2, there's not going to be a problem accommodating that minimum width of 5 to 6 feet on the sidewalk. Detours, there is no mention of bike or pedestrian detours or accommodations. It's a difficult area, Eric, to detour, and there is a long stretch. So again, there is an impact. The only time there will be an impact to pedestrian and bike traffic will be during those detours. And as Bob mentioned, it's, for Bacon Street, it's 4 detours over a span of approximately a year and a half. So recognizing that that is certainly an inconvenience for cyclists and pedestrians, there is no way we can accommodate traffic under the bridge while we're actually replacing the substructure or the superstructure. So we will work with the town to accommodate as best we can, but the detour will be lengthy just by virtue of that road being the way people get in and out of there. So we'll do our best to minimize. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if it looks like there's going to be any reason why we do need to accommodate sort of a closure for pedestrian and bike traffic, which I don't expect, but if that does occur, then RVA and Kate's team will certainly send out an email blast to those who sign up on the project website, and we can keep you informed of those as they're, prior to it actually occurring. And if you're actually local to the area, then we'll notify you via flyers. That was 4, was it? No, that was 3. 4. The road is already dangerously rough on bike or foot. So yes, we will be, as I mentioned earlier, be reconstructing or grind and overlay underneath there. So we'll be basically a brand new roadway and sidewalk underneath. And, any potholes that are under there, we're going to take care of that as well. 5, renderings show only cars. That's a good point, and I'll make sure that we address that for future presentations. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay,
John, may I add something?
Absolutely, Bob. Thanks.
Yes, and I think these are really great points. The detours that we showed up on the screen were intentionally just focused on cars and trucks as the signed detours. Pedestrians and cyclists will not be required, and we certainly wouldn't want to push peds or cyclists up onto Route 9, for instance. Again, that was more based on our preliminary work, what kind of truck turns would need to be accommodated and to not push vehicles into local roadways. But again, access via for peds and cyclists would be different and much less expansive in terms of the length of detour. So I just wanted to point that out. And when we meet again in the fall, we will have additional information up there on the slides. that'll show both all the modes of transportation.
Great, thank you, Bob. So Allison Burson has a question that I think you just answered. What improvements will MassDOT make to Route 9 to make it a safe bike ped detour? And I think you've just explained that the idea is to avoid that.
Sure, I apologize for the miscommunication on that.
Okay. Nancy Horn, to what extent, if any, will visibility driving east on Bacon Street toward the bridge or west coming out from under the bridge be impacted? Visibility is already a challenge.
Thanks again, Nancy. Certainly, it is there, and so the two issues related to this question are, one, as you approach, particularly as you approach from the Bacon Street side, and as I think I previously mentioned, that we are in conversations with the town about some improvements that can be made there during the course of construction. You know, any sort of there's just a dialogue. We're not exactly sure what we're going to be able to do, but we're definitely talking to engineering and public works about some improvements to the visibility as you approach. And similarly, as you exit the bridge onto or under the bridge, from under the bridge onto East Central Street, we recognize now too as well that there is a visibility issue for traffic coming out of from under the bridge onto East Central. So that again is a topic that I would like to entertain a discussion with MassDOT on, as it is a state highway in that section. And again, that will be in conjunction with my conversations with them relative to signalization of that intersection. Thanks again. Kate?
Thank you. Alan, could you unmute Molly again? She had, apparently she would like to respond to one of Nancy Horn's points.
Sure. Molly, your microphone is available to speak.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to apologize. My 12-month-old is eating a cookie right now, so she could start like flipping out. So I apologize. But just for the Wellesley residents, just want to let you know that any questions about safety concerns or ideas that you have for the road, feel free to come to Representative Peisch or myself, because we're the ones that will advocate for MassDOT on your behalf and help get the funding. I think most of the people on this call are in the planning part of this and focus on the bridge, and kind of beyond their scope right now to ask them a number of these questions. Rep Peisch has been advocating for years for signalization, update of the sidewalks on that road, and just overall like safety precautions, because there's been a number of accidents. But as far as a lot of those questions go, I really think you should go to the town and to Rep Peisch, and we could advocate for you guys. That's all I wanted to say. I just don't want anyone to get mixed up and think, because this public hearing is really focused, or public meeting is really focused on the replacement of the bridge, and some of this is not within the scope of those on the call right now, if that makes sense.
Great.
Thanks, Molly. I appreciate that, your comment, and certainly we'll reach out to you in the next several days to keep this dialogue going. And, you know, again, it is a bridge project, and we are the MBTA, but we are a portion of the MassDOT as well. And we, you know, we work together. So I think that is an important dialogue to have. So thank you to you and Representative Peisch for the feedback. Kate?
So at this point, we do not have any more written questions and answers. I would invite anybody who has some final questions or answers either to write them, or if you'd like to raise your hand, we can recognize you that way as well. So we'll give you a minute or so to pull your thoughts together. Okay. I do not see any raised hands or any further open question and answer submittals. So I think we're done with that portion of the meeting. I want to, you know, as somebody who's assisting the MBTA and the design build team with public outreach, I want to thank everybody so much for attending tonight's meeting. The website you have up there, mbta.com/baconstbridge. You can sign up for our e-blast there. You can send us an email at baconstbridge@mbta.com, and the 24-hour hotline is 617-571-7878. And with that, I'll pass it over to you, John, if you want to make any final comments.
Thank you very much, Kate. And I'd like to thank all the attendees and certainly the team for the presentation. And thanks for the questions. You know, it's an infrastructure improvement project. So it has doesn't have a lot to do with Wellesley per se, except for the fact that it's actually in the town. So we appreciate the town's dialogue. We've had some, we had a good meeting with the town yesterday, or at least I would categorize it as a good meeting. We've had several questions from some of the staff tonight as well. So we appreciate that. We want to do everything we can to make this project work well for the community, recognizing that certainly a project like this isn't easy to deal with. So we've tried to accelerate in a way that will minimize the disruption to the lives of people who live nearby. So thanks again. And again, as Kate mentioned, the website is available and you can see it online, I mean on the screen now. And you can reach me through that as well. I would like to point out that as it stands right now, the 24-hour hotline simply means that it's open 24 hours. We don't respond to it 24 hours a day, but we do check it daily, of course. Just want to point that out. Thanks again, everybody.
And, John, I just wanted to jump in, John, and one thing I forgot to remind or mention people is, as you recall from the beginning of the meeting, we are recording it. We will be posting the recording on the MBTA's YouTube channel, and we'll have a link to that on the website. We will send out an e-blast when that information is posted. Tonight's PowerPoint is also already up on the website. So you'll be hearing from us soon about the recording. If you want to share that or let people who weren't able to attend know about it, we'd love to have them view the meeting proceedings when at their leisure.
Okay, Kate, thanks. I think that'll conclude our meeting tonight. And again, I encourage you to reach out to us through the website and the email or the hotline for that matter. We appreciate all the input that we've received from local residents and certainly from town staff. And we look forward to continuing that dialogue. Thanks again. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you.